I always smile when I think of Bodhidharma. The delight of my heart is truly the light of my heart when I but think upon this 28th patriarch of Indian Buddhism. He is also the founder of the Zen school of Chinese and Japanese Buddhism. According to tradition, the origin of Zen actually goes back to Lord Gautama Buddha. Buddhist author Christmas Humphreys writes, "It is said that once when the Buddha was seated with his bhikkhus, his monks, a Brahma Raja came to him and, offering him a golden flower, asked him to preach the Dharma. The enlightened one accepted the flower and, holding it aloft, gazed at it in silence. After a while, one of the monks, the Venerable Mahakashyapa, smiled. Such is the origin of Zen Buddhism. For it is said that this smile was handed down by 28 successive patriarchs, the last being the Indian philosopher Bodhidharma." One of the historians who chronicled Bodhidharma's life tells us this: "He was a man of wonderful intelligence, bright and far-reaching. He thoroughly understood everything that he had ever learned. As his ambition was to master the doctrine of the Mahayana, he abandoned the white dress of a layman and put on the robe of monkhood, wishing to cultivate the seeds of holiness." Cultivate the seeds of holiness. Take that teaching. If you desire holiness, cultivate the seeds. The seeds are the germs of truth, exalted thoughts and honor. Cultivate seeds of holiness. Dr. Thich Thien An, in his book, Zen Philosophy, Zen Practice, says, Bodhidharma came to China about 520 AD, 1,000 years after the time of Gautama Buddha. When he arrived, Buddhism was well established. There were many sincere Chinese Buddhists who understood the doctrine well, generously supported the religion, and cultivated the way with great energy. Nevertheless, something was lacking. Something was lacking. It was a void that Bodhidharma was to fill. What was lacking was the transmission of the mind of enlightenment. Studying Zen Buddhism is a path whereby we seek the transmission of the mind of enlightenment. We empty the vessel of the lower mind, we enter the divine mind, and we welcome the Buddha to our temple. Tradition says that Bodhidharma brought a special message from India to China, which encapsulates Zen philosophy. It reads, "A special transmission outside the scriptures. No dependence upon words and letters." These are the statements which encapsulate Zen philosophy. You should write them down. Number one is a special transmission outside the scriptures. Two is no dependence upon words and letters. Three, direct pointing at the mind of man. Four, seeing into one's nature and the attainment of Buddhahood. Bodhidharma's message is that we cannot realize ultimate truth or attain our own Buddhahood by means of words and letters. No, we must discover for ourselves our real nature. And what is our real nature? It is the Buddha nature. Let's break through Bodhidharma's breakthrough sermon. It begins with a question by Bodhidharma's disciple, Hui Ku. Hui Ku asked, "If someone is determined to reach enlightenment, what is the most essential method he can practice?" Bodhidharma answered, The most essential method, which includes all other methods, is beholding the mind. Beholding the mind. Hui Ke asked, but how can one method include all others? Bodhidharma answered, the mind is the root from which all things grow. If you can understand the mind, everything else is included. It is like the root of a tree. All a tree's fruit and flowers, branches and leaves depend on its root. If you nourish its root, the tree multiplies. If you cut its root, it dies. Those who understand the mind reach enlightenment with minimal effort. Minimal effort. Those who do not understand the mind practice in vain. Everything good and bad comes from your own mind. To find something beyond the mind is impossible. You only are the circle of your own mind. The direction of the Great White Brotherhood to us to resolve our psychology is precisely the realization of the admonishment of Bodhidharma to behold the mind and study the mind. When a great bodhisattva delves deeply into perfect wisdom, he realizes that the activity of his mind has two aspects, the pure and the impure. We all know this. We all observe this. If we do not, we ought to do it. By their very nature, these two mental states are always present. They alternate as cause or effect depending on conditions. The pure mind delighting in good deeds, the impure mind thinking of evil. Those who are not affected by impurity are sages. That is the definition of a sage. Those who are not affected by impurity. It doesn't touch them. They may see it, but they do not take it in. They transcend suffering and experience the bliss of nirvana. All others trapped by the impure mind and entangled by their own karma are mortals. Thus we have a definition of the sage and the mortal trapped by the impure mind. He sees everything through his impure mind, so he holds all others in the regard of impurity. He is cynical. He believes that mankind are base.
The delight of my heart is
he cannot see beyond the wart on his own nose.
This 28th
They drift
patriarch
through
of
three
Indian
realms
Buddhism.
and suffer countless
He
afflictions.
is also the founder of the
all
Zen
because
school
their
of
impure
Chinese
mind
and Japanese
does what?
Buddhism.
It
According to
obscures
tradition,
their real self.
the origin of Zen
The
actually
impure
goes back to
mind
Lord Gautama
obscures
Buddha.
the real self.
Buddhist author Christmas
So if you
Humphreys
have the
writes,
residue of an impure
it is
mind
said that once when the Buddha was
from
seated with
parents,
his
from
bhikkhus,
teachers, from
his monks,
civilizations, from
a
movies,
Brahma
from rock
Raja
music,
came to
etc.,
him
and all of the
offering him a
ills and the
golden
burdens of the
flower,
flesh,
asked him to preach
what you
the Dharma.
realize is that you really
The
do not
enlightened
know
one
your real
accepted the
self.
flower and
Because you
holding
see
it
yourself
aloft, gazed at
as
it in
your
silence.
impure self.
After a while, one of the monks,
that
the venerable
reality.
Mahakashyapa,
Geshe Ben,
Smile.
an erudite 11th century
such is the
monk,
origin of
was
Zen
known for his
Buddhism.
rigorous attention to the pure
For it
and
is said
the
that this
impure
smile
mind.
was handed down by
Surya
28
Das relates two
successive
incidents in the
patriarchs,
life of Geshe
the
Ben.
last being the Indian
Wandering
philosopher
in search of
Bodhidharma.
alms one day, the young monk Ben
One
was
of the
invited into the
historians who
home
chronicle
of a
Bodhidharma's
devout
life
couple.
tells us this.
While
He
the
was a man
faithful
of wonderful
householders went out of the
intelligence,
room to prepare
bright
some
and
food for the
far-reaching.
poor young
He
mendicant,
thoroughly understood
youthful
everything that he
Ben
had ever
suddenly
learned.
awoke as as if
As his
from a
ambition was
reverie.
to master the doctrine
He
of the
found
Mahayana,
himself, as
he
it were, with
abandoned the
his
white
hand in the
dress
cookie
of a
jar,
layman and put on the robe of
pinching
knighthood,
some delectable
wishing to
tea
cultivate
for
the
himself
seeds
from
of
a sack
holiness.
in the corner.
Cultivate the seeds of holiness.
There he was, caught red-handed,
Take
if
that
only
teaching.
by his own
If you desire
meticulous
holiness,
conscience.
cultivate the seeds.
Do you have
The
a
seeds are the
meticulous
germs of
conscience?
truth. Exalted
good to
thoughts
develop
and
it.
honor.
And so he
Cultivate
shouted,
seeds
"Thief,
of
thief!"
holiness. Dr. Thich Thien An, in his book
Then created
Zen
such an
Philosophy,
uproar that
Zen
the entire
Practice,
family came
says,
running, makeshift
Bodhidharma
weapons
came
in
to China
hand.
about 520 AD.
To their amazement and
1,000
relief, they
years
beheld the
after the
novice
time
accusing
of
himself of
Gautama Buddha.
pilfering and
When
threatening
he
to cut off
arrived,
his
Buddhism
offending
was well
hand at
established.
once if it ever
There were
acted
many
so
sincere
disgracefully
Chinese Buddhists
again.
who understood the doctrine well,
Thus the
generously
novice
supported the
met
religion,
his inner
and cultivated
guru.
the way with great
The
energy.
innate integrity
Nevertheless,
of wisdom
something
itself.
was lacking.
Here,
Something
the guru,
was lacking.
integrity.
It was a void
The
that
innate
Bodhidharma was
integrity
to fill.
of his own wisdom,
What was lacking
his
was the
inner guru,
transmission of the
from
mind
whom he was never
of enlightenment.
thereafter parted.
Studying Zen Buddhism
Once in Geshe Ben's later
is a
years,
path whereby
many learned abbots and
we seek
scholars
the
were invited to
transmission of
pray
the mind of
and receive
enlightenment.
offerings at the home of a
We
wealthy
empty the
patron
vessel of the
in
lower
southern
mind.
Tibet.
We enter the divine
The
mind.
first story is the early
And we
years,
welcome
this
the
is the
Buddha
later years.
to our temple.
Geshe Ben was seated in the middle of the long
Tradition
row
says
of
that
monastic
Bodhidharma brought a
sages,
special message
all
from India
ranked
to
according
China,
to
which
seniority.
encapsulates Zen philosophy.
In those days, it was the
reads,
custom for tea,
a special
food,
transmission
and other
outside the
offerings to be
scriptures.
handed individually to each
no
of the seated
dependence upon
monks.
words and letters.
Attendants proceeded along the line,
These are
starting
the
from the
statements
oldest
which
at the head
encapsulate Zen
and
philosophy.
continuing
You
to the
should write them
youngest at
down.
the end.
Number one
Geshe Ben
is a
noticed
special
that the yogurt
transmission
being doled
outside
out
the scriptures.
was of excellent quality,
Two is
and he feared
no
it might be
dependence
gone by the
upon
time it
words
reached him.
and letters. 3. Direct pointing.
Then he
at the
caught
mind
himself
of man.
having such a grasping,
4.
unseemly thought,
Seeing into one's
exclaiming,
nature
"Glutton!
and the
Foodaholic!"
attainment of Buddhahood. Bodhidharma's message is that we cannot realize ultimate truth or
Ben
attain our own
immediately reached out,
Buddhahood
turned
by
his
means
wooden
of
bowl
words
upside down
and
on the
letters.
table before him. When the attendant monk
No,
carrying
we
the
must
clay
discover
yogurt
for
pot
ourselves
reached Ben
our
and asked
real
him to
nature.
right his overturned
And
bowl,
what is our real
Ben
nature?
refused.
It is the Buddha
My
nature.
greedy mind has already enjoyed
Let's
its
break
share.
free. Bodhidharma's
Ben
breakthrough
explained.
sermon.
In this way, practitioners like
Begins
Geshe
with a
Ben
question by Bodhidharma's disciple,
vigilantly guard every
Huey.
thought, word, and
Huey
deed,
asked,
incorporating all
if
activities
someone is
into the
determined
spiritual
to reach
path.
enlightenment, what is the most essential
It is very
method
good
he can
to hear
practice?
these accounts,
Bodhidharma answered,
for by
the
them
most
we begin
essential
to
method,
internalize
which includes
the
all
disciplines
other methods,
of which those devotees of the East, the
beholding
Far East,
the
are
mind.
capable. The way they think
Beholding
and
the
their
mind.
dedication. Above
Huey
all, we
asked,
hear of the youngness of the mind.
But how can one method include all others?
Geshe Ben
Bodhidharma
considered
answered,
his thoughts
the
to be
mind is the
concrete
root from
things,
which all things grow.
not as we would dismiss
If you
them
can
as just
understand
passing
the
thoughts.
mind,
Every thought
everything else is
he
included.
analyzed to determine
It is like the
he
root
was
of
not
a
in the
tree.
lower three
All
realms.
a tree's fruit and flowers, branches
The next
and
teaching
leaves
of
depend
Bodhidharma is
its
on the
root.
6 perfections,
If you
or
nourish its
paramitas.
root, the tree
These are the virtues
multiplies.
everyone who aspires to be a
If you
bodhisattva,
cut its root,
which is a Buddha
it
to
dies.
be, must
Those
perfect.
who understand
So
the
here
mind
they are.
reach
Write them down.
enlightenment with minimal
I have used the
effort.
translation of J.C. Cleary from his
Minimal
book
effort.
Zen Dawn,
Those
as well as
who do
that
not
of Red
understand
Pine.
the mind practice
In this
in
section,
vain.
Bodhidharma correlates the 6
Everything
perfections
good
to the 6
and bad
senses.
comes from your
Hui
own
Ke
mind.
asked, as the scriptures
To find
explain
something
them,
beyond
the 6
mind
paramitas,
is
also
impossible.
called the 6 perfections, are,
You only
write
are
them down and
the
number
circle
them.
of
1.
your own mind.
Giving. The perfection
The
of
direction
perfect
of the Great White
giving.
Brotherhood to us
2.
to To resolve
Discipline.
our psychology,
the perfection
is precisely
of
the realization
self-discipline.
of the admonishment
Perfect
of Bodhidharma,
self-discipline.
to behold
3, the
and
perfection
study
of
them.
patience. Perfect patience.
When a great bodhisattva delves
4,
deeply into
the perfection
perfect wisdom,
of energetic
he
progress.
realizes that the
Energetic
activity of his mind
progress.
has two aspects, the pure and the impure.
5, meditative
We all
concentration.
We all
The perfection
observe this
of
if we do not,
meditative
we ought to do it.
concentration.
By their very nature,
6,
these two mental
wisdom.
states are always present.
Wisdom.
They alternate
If you
as
have
cause
wisdom,
or effect,
you know
depending
you
on
have wise
conditions.
dominion
The
over
pure
yourself.
mind delighting in good deeds, the impure
So this is
mind
Hui Ke
thinking of evil.
speaking to Bodhidharma.
Those who are not
You
affected
say that
by
if these
impurity
6
are
sense
perfect.
faculties are pure,
That
this is
is
called
the
6
definition
perfection.
of a sage.
If we understand
Those who
it
are
this
not
way,
affected
what is
by
the meaning of
impurity?
perfection? And why
Because
are they
in
called
perfection,
fairies?
They may see it,
F-E-R-R-I-E-S, fairies.
they transcend
A
suffering
fairy is a boat,
and experience
that
the
carries
bliss
you
of
and
nirvana.
automobiles
All
and trucks
others trapped by the
over
impure mind
waterways.
and entangled by their own
Bodhidharma
karma
said,
are mortals.
if you want to cultivate
Thus we
the
have a
6
definition of the
perfections,
sage
you should
and the
always be
mortal.
purifying
The
the
mortal
6
trapped by the
sense
impure mind.
faculties.
He sees everything
logic
through his
is,
impure mind.
If you
So
purify
he
the 6
holds all
sense
others in the regard
faculties,
of impurity.
then
He is
you will
cynical.
manifest the
He
6
believes that
perfections.
mankind are base.
If you purify
He
these
cannot see
faculties, then
beyond
what you
the
manifest
wart
of the
on his own
perfections
nose.
will also be pure, because you
They
receive
drift through
and
3 realms
send
and
out
suffer countless
the
afflictions,
perfections through the
all
sense
because
faculties.
their impure mind
Then Bodhidharma
does what?
says, first you must
It
subdue the 6
obscures their real
thieves.
self.
Thieves.
The
You have
impure
6
mind
thieves
obscures the
within
real
your own
self.
aura.
So if you have
If you
the
can
residue of an
abandon
impure
the I
mind,
thief,
from
E-Y-E,
parents, from
the I
teachers, from
thief,
civilizations,
and
from
leave
movies,
behind
from
the
rock music,
objects of
etc.,
form,
and
the
all of
mind
the
will be
ills and the
free from
burdens of the flesh.
stinginess.
What you
The point
realize
here
is
is, what
that
you
really do
cannot
not know
see,
your
you
real
cannot
self,
covet.
because you see yourself
When you see things
as your impure
and covet them
self,
and hold them close to
obscuring
yourself,
that reality.
then
Geshe
you are guilty
Ben,
of stinginess.
an erudite 11th century monk,
This
was
is
known
called
for his rigorous attention to the
the
pure
perfection
and the
of
impure
giving.
mind. Surya Das relates two
Perfection of
incidents in
giving
the life of Geshe
comes
Ben.
when you cast out the I
Wandering in
thief.
search of alms one
Leave
day,
behind the objects
the
of
young
form,
monk Ben
the
was
mind will
invited
be
into the
free from
home of a
stinginess.
devout couple. While the faithful
2.
householders went out of the
If you
room
can
to prepare
control
some
the
food
ear
for the
thief
poor young
and
mendicant,
not let it indulge in the
youthful Ben
dusts of
suddenly
sounds,
awoke,
this
as
is
if
called
from a
upholding
reverie.
discipline.
He found
The ear
himself,
thief,
as it were,
the ear
with
thief
his hand in the cookie
robs
jar,
you
pinching some delectable
of entering
tea
into the
for
higher
himself from a
dimensions of
sack
being.
in the
You
corner.
let the ear
There he
take from
was,
you
caught red-handed, if
what
only
you
by
should be
his own
hearing
meticulous
out of the mind of God.
conscience.
So this
Do
is
you have
the
a
ear
meticulous
thief.
conscience?
The third
good
is
to
the
develop
nose thief.
And so he
If
shouted,
you can subdue
"Thief,
the
thief,"
nose thief by equating all smells as neutral,
then created
this is
such
called
an
the
uproar that the
perfection
entire
of
family
patience.
came running, makeshift weapons in hand. To their
All the
amazement
things
and
that
relief,
you can
they beheld
smell,
the novice accusing himself
both
of
good
pilfering
and bad, may draw
and
you,
threatening to cut
for
off his
instance, to
offending
eat
hand at
food
once
because it
if it ever
smells so
acted
good,
so disgracefully
and to
again.
do all kinds of things because
Thus
by
the
the
novice
nose
met
thief
his inner
you are
guru,
attracted to
the
what you are
innate
taking in through the
integrity
nose.
of wisdom itself.
Without
Here, the guru
allowing the
integrity,
nose to affect one's
the innate
thinking, one
integrity
develops
of
the
his own
perfection
wisdom
of
was his
patience,
inner guru,
because you
from
are not
whom he was
pulled
never
here and there
thereafter
by this
parted.
sense. And so you are patiently centered.
Once in
Centered
Geshe Ben's later
within.
years, many
And so
learned
you have
abbots
a
and
higher
scholars were invited
soul
to pray
faculty.
and receive offerings
These
at the home
physical
of a wealthy
faculties
patron
correspond
in
to soul
southern Tibet.
faculties and
The
ultimately to
first story
spiritual
is the early
faculties.
years. This is the later years. Geshe Ben was seated in the middle of the long row
So
of monastic
patience
sages,
comes
all
when
ranked
we are
according
not
to
pulled
seniority.
here and there by this
In those
sense.
days, it was the custom for tea, food, and other offerings to be handed individually
Next,
to each of the
if you
seated
can
lamas.
curb the tongue thief by
Attendants
conquering
proceeded
desires
along the
to
line,
taste,
starting from the oldest at the
to
head
praise,
and
and
continuing
to
to the
explain
youngest at the end.
tirelessly, this is
Geshe
called
Ben
the
noticed
perfection
that the yogurt
of energetic
being doled
progress,
out
or
was of
virya.
excellent quality,
Virya.
and he feared it might be gone by
Tongue
the time
thief
it reached
robs
him.
you of the power of the throat chakra. Also,
Then he caught
the
himself
desires to
having
taste.
such a grasping,
So we
unseemly
eat because
thought,
something tastes
exclaiming,
good, tastes good
"Glutton,
instead of eating
foodaholic."
what is good for us. Then to praise, continually offering praise and so forth upon people, and then talking
immediately reached out,
tirelessly,
turned his wooden
explaining
bowl
oneself.
upside down on the table before him.
Energetic progress when
When the
you control
attendant
the
monk
tongue,
carrying the clay
control
yogurt
the
pot
sacred
reached
fire
Ben
of the
and
first
asked
ray,
him to right
the
his
throat
overturned
chakra.
bowl.
This
Ben
is the
refused.
initiation of second level, the throat
My
chakra.
greedy mind
So
has
then you
already
have your
enjoyed
virya,
its
then you
share.
have the concentrated energy,
Ben
power
exclaimed.
within you to do
In
things
this way,
because you are not the
practitioners
slave
like Geshe Ben
of the tongue thief.
vigilantly guard every
If you
thought,
can
word,
subdue
and
the
deed,
body thief, this
incorporating
is the next
all
one, the
activities
body thief,
into the spiritual
by
path.
remaining unmoved by sensations of touch
It is very good
and desires.
to hear
This
these
is called the
accounts.
perfection of meditative
For by
concentration.
them we begin to
Meditative
internalize
concentration.
the disciplines of which those devotees of
The 60s, the 70s, and continuing have brought into our culture the touchy,
Above all, we
feely,
hear of the
graspy,
yarness of the mind.
continually having contact one with the other.
Geshe Ben considered his thoughts to be
I was reminded of this when I
things,
was having my rosary on this
not as
week,
we would dismiss
wherein
them as
Jesus
just
said
passing thoughts.
of the woman
Every thought
who thought
he
she could be healed
analyzed
if she
to
would just
determine
touch his garment,
he was not in
did
the
so,
lower three
and
realms.
Jesus asked, "Who touched
The
me?"
next teaching
And his
of
disciple said,
Bodhidharma
"Master,
is on the 6 perfections.
The crowd
paramitas.
throngs thee, and
These
thou
are the
sayest,
virtues
Who touched
everyone who
me?"
aspires to be a
And
bodhisattva,
Jesus said,
which is a
"Someone
Buddha to
touched
be,
me,
must perfect.
for I perceive
So here
that
they are,
virtue is
write them
gone
down.
out of me."
I have used the
That
translation
virtue
of
is the
J.C.
virya.
Cleary from his book
That
Zen
virtue
Dawn,
is the
as well as
sacred
that of
fire
Red
and the
Pine.
building in your aura of
In
tremendous
this section,
strength
Bodhidharma
and energy,
correlates the 6
whereby you
perfections to
can
the 6
ultimately become a
senses.
magnet for the Holy
Huike
Spirit.
asked, as the scriptures explain
Jesus
them,
was
the
concerned
6 paramitas,
to keep
also
the
called
aura
the 6
about him
perfections,
intact.
are. Write them
Nevertheless,
down and number
the
them.
woman was healed,
1, giving,
and he had compassion on
the
her,
perfection of
an
perfect
issue of blood
giving.
of 12 years.
2,
So
Discipline.
please remember this,
the perfection
that
of
as you have studied hard, worked hard,
Perfect
decreed hard,
self-discipline.
changed your momentums,
3,
reversed
the
the
perfection
spirals
of
of
patience.
negativity and downward
Perfect
flow of
patience.
energies all through this summer. Do
4,
not allow
the
yourself to
perfection
lose
of
that energy
energetic
by
progress.
feeling, by
Energetic
thinking that you need
progress.
to have continual touching with
5,
those who have not been here, with
meditative
those who are simply in
concentration.
the world,
The perfection
even those who you
of
love.
meditative
Of course, it is awkward
concentration.
not to be loving and kind toward one's dearest friends, family
6,
members, and so forth.
wisdom.
But you can always call
Wisdom.
for your tube of light to Archangel Michael
If
for
you
the
have wisdom,
protection and sealing
you
of your
know you
chakras.
have wise
That when you are in
dominion
obvious
over
social
yourself.
situations where it is necessary to touch one another,
So
to
this
shake
is
hands, to do this
Huike
and that you will remember
speaking to
to
Bodhidharma.
guard well what you have
You
garnered
say
in your
that if
chakras.
these
It
6
is easy to
sense
lose.
faculties are pure,
This is why
this
we are
is
concluding
called
with
6
these lectures,
perfections.
so that you can
If
take
we
with you
understand it
the
this way,
sense of
what is the
what
meaning
discipline
of perfection,
is of the
and
masters
why
of the
are
Far
they called
East,
fairies?
and what they expect of their disciples.
F-E-R-R-I-E-S, fairies.
If you can subdue
Fairy
the
is a
body
boat
thief by remaining
that carries
unmoved
you
by
and
sensations of touch
automobiles and
and
trucks
desires, this is
over
called the perfection
waterways.
of meditative
Bodhidharma
concentration.
said,
when you
If
have
want
not
to
subdued
cultivate
the body
six
thief,
perfections,
and he
you
comes
should
to
always
rob
be
you
purifying
of the one-pointed
six
raising of the sacred
sense
fire,
faculties.
what you find is that
The logic is,
being vulnerable to
if you
sensations of
purify
touch
the six sense
distracts you
faculties,
from meditative
then
concentration.
you will manifest
And that
the
is
six
what
perfections.
the sense of touch and
If you
desire
purify these
brings
faculties,
about.
then what you manifest of the
Next
perfections
comes the
will
thief
also be pure
of the
because
mind, the
you
mind
receive
thief.
and
If you
send
can
out
tame the mind
the
thief
perfections through
by
the
not
sense
yielding to
faculties.
delusions, but practicing
Then Bodhidharma
wakefulness,
says,
this is
first
called
you
the
must
perfection
subdue the
of
six
wisdom.
thieves.
Wakefulness.
You have six thieves.
Wakefulness
within
is
your own
alertness.
aura.
You do not
If
have
you
to
can
do as
abandon
Bodhidharma
the
did,
I
cut off your eyelids
EYE,
and
the I
be
thief,
there.
and leave behind the
night and
objects
day.
of form.
He was
the mind
illustrating
will be
something
free
to
from
his
stinginess.
disciples. Wakefulness,
The point here
being
is
alert
what you
24
cannot
hours a day.
see, you
can
cannot
be alert
covet.
when you are sleeping.
When you
If
see
you are
things
alert when you are sleeping,
and covet
you
them
suddenly awaken
and hold
to
them
danger,
close to yourself,
noise, to sound, to smoke.
then
You are
you are
alert
guilty of
because you have trained
stinginess.
yourself to be alert. Those
This
who
is
are not
called
alert and who
the
eat heavy
perfection
foods and who
of
sleep
giving.
deeply in the flesh are
Perfection
often
of giving
burned alive in
comes when you
fires
cast out
because they
the
do
I
not
thief.
have the alertness
Leave
developed
behind
of the
the objects of
wakefulness
form,
of the mind of the
mind will
Buddha
be free from
that is going
stinginess.
24 hours a day.
2.
Paramita
You
means
can
crossing.
control the ear
These
thief
6 paramitas
and not
are
able to indulge in the
transports.
dusts of
Like
sound.
boats or rafts,
This is called
they transport
upholding
beings
discipline.
to the other shore.
The ear thief,
Hence
the
they are
ear
called
thief
fairies.
robs you.
When
of
I was a
entering
very
into
little
the
girl
higher
and my mother told me
dimensions
we
of
were
being,
going on a ferry
you let the ear
and didn't explain what
take
it was,
from you
I really thought when I was about
what
3
you
years
should be
old that we were
hearing
going to climb
out
on a
of the
ferry
mind
who
of
was going to
God.
fly us over the
So
water.
this is the ear thief.
I was
The
very
third is the
disappointed when I
nose
saw the
thief.
boat.
If you can subdue the nose thief by equating all smells as neutral,
Bodhidharma now
this is
takes
called
up the
the
question of
perfection
whether
of
meritorious
patience.
works will help you attain Buddhahood. This
All
is
the
a very
things that
subtle
you can
teaching
smell,
because you can
both
almost
good and bad,
think
may
that it's
draw you,
in line with
for
Martin
instance,
Luther,
to
who
eat
says
food
that
because it smells
faith
so
is all
good,
you need. You don't need
and
works.
to do all kinds
But
of
it has a
things
deeper
because
meaning.
by the nose
Huike
thief,
asked, throughout the
you are
sutras, the
attracted
Buddha tells
to what you
mortals
are taking
they
in
can
through
achieve
the nose.
enlightenment by performing meritorious
Without
works.
allowing
Among
the
these
nose
are
to
observing
affect
fasts
one's thinking,
and
one
worshiping.
develops the perfection
But if beholding
of
the mind
patience.
includes all other
Because you are
practices,
not
then such
told
works
here
as
and there
these
by
would
this
appear
sense. So you
redundant.
are patiently
Would appear redundant.
centered,
Bodhidharma answered,
and so you
the
have
sutras of the
all
Buddha contain
soul
countless
faculty.
metaphors.
these physical
Because mortals have
faculties
shallow
correspond to
minds
soul faculties
and do not
and
understand
ultimately
anything deep,
spiritual
the Buddha used the tangible to represent the sublime.
So
The
patience
tangible to
comes
represent
when
the sublime.
we are not pulled here
So
and there
be
by
certain
this
that when you are
sense.
reading these texts that you know when an example is an example made concrete
Next,
for our
If you
understanding,
can curb
but in
the
fact
tongue
is
thief
not intended
by
to be
conquering
taken
desires
literally.
to taste,
People who seek
praise,
blessings by
and to
concentrating
explain
on external
tirelessly,
works
this is
instead of
called
internal
the perfection
cultivation
of energetic
are
progress,
attempting
or
the impossible. If you
virya.
seek blessings by
tongue
external
thief robs
works
you of the
instead
power
of
of the throat
internal
chakra.
cultivation, you are
Also,
attempting the
the desires
impossible.
to taste.
By
So
cultivating
you
the
eat
inner
because
Buddha,
something tastes
one's
good,
works are then
tastes
worthy
good
of
instead
merit,
eating
for they
what
are
is good
accomplished
for us.
by the Buddha
Learn
nature.
to praise, continually offering praise, and so forth. to
This is a
fine people,
profound teaching.
And then talking tirelessly, explaining
If you are
myself.
empty, if you have not
Energetic
developed the
progress,
Buddha
when you
nature,
control the
if the
tongue,
root of the
you
Buddha
control
is
the
not
sacred
pushing
fire
up
of the first
the
ray,
flowers and the
throat
leaves,
chakra,
if you have
this
not
is the initiation of
internalized
second
the Buddha
eye,
nature,
throat chakra.
then
So then you
the
have
good
your
works you are
virya,
doing
then you have
are not coming
the
forth from the
concentrated
Buddha
energy,
nature.
power
Therefore, you do
within
not
you
receive
to
the
do things
merit of
because
having
you are
done
not the
them
slave
through the Buddha
of
nature.
the tongue thief.
Nevertheless, until you realize the Buddha
body
nature,
thief,
it is well to do
thief,
good works.
by remaining unmoved
better to
by
do good works
sensations of touch
when
and desires.
you channel into
This
those
is called
works
the perfection
profound
of
love
meditative
for the Buddha nature in
concentration.
yourself and in another,
Meditative concentration.
and profound love for that Buddha nature that is increasing.
The 60s, the 70s, and continuing
You're watching
have brought
Elizabeth
into
Clare
our
Prophet,
culture
world-renowned author
touchy,
and founder of
feely,
Summit University.
graspy,
Summit University is
continually
located at the
having
beautiful Royalty
contact
Town
with
Ranch
the
in Park
other.
County, Montana, just north of Yellowstone National Park.
I was reminded of
If
this
you'd like
when
more
I was
information,
having my
call
nose written last week, wherein Jesus said
1-800-245-5445.
of the woman
That's
who thought she could be healed if she would just touch his
1-800-245-5445.
garment. Did so, and Jesus asked, "Who touched me?"
Bodhidharma
And his disciple
says,
said, "Master,
observing a fast is
the
useless
crowd
unless you
throngs
understand
thee,
what
and
this
thou
really
sayest,
means.
Who touched me?" And
This
Jesus
teaching
said,
on fasting
"Someone
is the most
touched me,
enlightening
for
I
I
have ever read.
perceive that virtue
Those of
is
you
gone
who
out
fast,
of me.
listen carefully.
That virtue is
To fast
rebellion.
means
That,
to regulate
that virtue
your body
is the
and
sacred
mind
fire, and
so
the
that they are
building in
not
your aura
distracted
of
or
tremendous
disturbed.
strength and energy,
Now that is the
whereby
principal
you can
reason
ultimately become a
for
magnet
fasting,
for the Holy Spirit.
unless you are fasting purely for health reasons.
Jesus was
But
concerned
once you hear this teaching,
to
you will
keep
incorporate
the
your
aura
fasting for
about
health
him
reasons
intact.
into
Nevertheless,
the disciplines the
woman
Buddha
was
outlines.
healed, and he had compassion on
So
her.
this is Bodhidharma.
An issue of blood.
To fast
that
means
is.
to regulate your body and
So
mind
please remember
so that they are
this,
not distracted or
that
disturbed.
as you have studied hard,
And
worked
to
hard,
observe
decreed
means
hard,
to uphold.
changed your momentums,
To uphold the rules
reversed
of
the
discipline.
spirals of negativity and
according
downward
to the
flow of
Dharma.
energies. All through
Fasting
this summer,
means guarding against
do
the
not
6
allow
attractions
yourself
on the
to lose that
outside.
energy by
The attractions to
feeling, by
which the
thinking
6
that you need
senses
to have
become
continual
attached.
touching with those
Guarding
who have
against
not
the
been here,
6
with those who are
attractions on the
simply in
outside.
world, even
Fasting
those who
means
love.
guarding
Of
against
course,
the
it is
3
awkward
poisons on the
not to be
inside.
loving and kind toward one's dearest
Greed,
friends,
anger,
family, and
delusion.
sacred. But you can
Fasting
always
means
fall to
striving
the
through
light,
contemplation
Archangel
to
Michael, for the
purify your
protection,
body
sealing of your
and mind.
chakras, that when you are in obvious
Fasting
social
also
situations
includes
where it
5
is necessary
kinds of
to
food.
touch one another, to shake hands.
This
to
is
do
what you
and
get
that,
to eat
that you will
on your
remember
fast.
to guard
1.
well what you have
First,
garnered
there
from
is
your chakras.
delight in the
It is
Dharma.
easy to lose.
So
This
you
is why we
eat
are concluding
the
with
delight
these
in the
lectures,
Dharma.
so that
This
you
is the
can
delight
take
that
with
comes
you
from
the
acting in
sense
accordance
of
with
what the
the
discipline
Dharma.
is of the masters of the Far East
2.
and what they expect of their disciples.
The second kind of food is harmony
If you can
in
subdue the
meditation.
body thief by
This is the
remaining
harmony of
unmoved
body
by
and mind
sensations
that
of
comes
touch
from seeing
and
through
desires.
subject
This
and
is called the
object.
protection of
Seeing
meditative
through subject
concentration.
and object.
When you have not
You must have
subdued
harmony
the body
in meditation
thief,
while
and
fasting.
he comes to rob
If you do not do
of the
all
one
these
final
things that
raising of the
Bodhidharma
sacred
lists,
fire,
you
what
fast
you
in
find is
vain.
that being vulnerable to sensations of touch distracts
The third
you
kind of
from
food is
meditative
invocation.
concentration.
The invocation of
And that
Buddhas
is what
with both your
the
mouth
sense of touch
and your
and
mind.
desire brings about.
We have
Next comes the
good
thief
adeptship
of the mind.
on
the
giving
mind
invocations
thief.
with the mouth.
If you can tame the
We
mind
can learn
thief
lessons of
by not
concentration
yielding to delusions, but
to have
practicing
invocations of
wakefulness.
the mind.
This is called the perfection
The fourth
of
food you
wisdom.
eat while fasting is resolution.
Wakefulness.
The resolution to pursue
Wakefulness
virtue,
is alertness.
whether walking, standing,
You do not
sitting,
have
or
to do
lying
as
down.
Bodhidharma did. About
Virtue
your
is an
eyelids
essential part
and be
of
there.
fasting. Resolution
night and day.
brings
He was
the
illustrating
determination
something
to
to his
embody that
disciples.
virtue.
Wakefulness.
The fifth
Being
food
alert
while
to
fasting
the
is
day.
liberation.
You can be
The
alert
liberation of
when
your
you are
mind
sleeping.
from worldly
If you are alert
contamination.
when you are sleeping, you suddenly
You don't
awaken
fast and
to
then
danger, to noise, to sound,
tune
to
in
smoke. You are alert
to all the
because you
degrading
have found yourself
manifestations
to be alert.
in movies and
Those who
television.
are not alert,
These
who eat
5 are the
foods
foods
and
of
sleep
fasting.
deeply in the flesh,
Unless a person eats these 5 pure foods, he is wrong to think he is fasting. This is Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma in our midst. Also, once you stop eating the food of delusion, if you touch it again, you break your fast. And once you break it, you reap no blessing from it. The world is full of deluded people who do not see this. They indulge their body and mind in all manner of evil. They give free rein to their passions and have no shame. And when they stop eating ordinary food, they call it fasting. How absurd, says Bodhidharma. The absurdity of observing only the external ritual of fasting was pointed out in this anecdote by Zhuangzi. The gatekeeper in the capital city of Sung
Bodhidharma now takes up the
became such an
question of whether
expert mourner
meritorious works
after
will
his
help
father's
you
death.
attain Buddhahood.
He so emaciated himself with
This is a
fasts
very
and
subtle
austerities
teaching, because
that he
you
was
can
promoted to
almost
high rank in order that
think
he
that
might
it's
serve as a
in line
model
with Martin
of
Luther,
ritual
who says
observance.
that faith is
As a
all you
result
need.
of
You
this,
don't need
his
works.
imitators so
But
deprived
it has a
themselves
deeper meaning.
that half of them died.
Preka asked,
The others were not
throughout the
promoted.
sutras, the Buddha tells mortals they can achieve enlightenment by
This
performing
is a very dry
meritorious works.
account.
Among these are observing fasts.
It comes in a
and
very
discipline.
timely moment if you've been
But if
watching the news
beholding the mind
and
includes all
hearing the
other
talk about
practices, then
young
such
girls,
works as these
even at an early
would
age,
appear
starving themselves
redundant.
so that they
Would
can look
appear
super thin.
redundant.
And
Bodhidharma
it is an
answered,
obsession. We've heard about
"The
it for
sutras of the
years, but
Buddha
it is
contain
coming to the
countless
fore now
mysteries.
because someone
Because
who was a
mortals
great
have shallow
athlete
minds
actually
and
starved
do not
herself to
understand
death,
anything deep,
did
the
not
Buddha
allow
used
herself
the
to pass into
tangible
puberty,
to represent
and
the sublime.
died because of the malfunction of her
The
organs.
tangible to
And when she
represent
was in the hospital,
sublime.
she took the
So,
IV
be
off
certain
and
that
threw
when you are
it
reading
in the
these
garbage can.
texts that you know,
So this is
then
the fanaticism,
an example is an example,
the wrong
made
side, the
concrete
evil
for our
side, the
understanding,
entity-ridden side
but in fact
of fasting.
is not intended to be taken.
We need to be aware of it because many demons
People who
move
seek
us to this
blessings
point
by
or would move us to
concentrating
this
on
point.
external works,
Some people
instead
are
of
addicted to
internal-
fasting
internal
on the spiritual
cultivation,
path.
are attempting the
Bodhidharma
impossible.
does not recommend it
If you
except
seek
under the
blessings
terms
by
that
external
he has
works,
stated.
instead
And the
of
wonderful thing
internal
about this
cultivation,
teaching on fasting is
you
to
are
realize that
attempting the impossible.
these monks under
by
Bodhidharma
cultivating the
and
inner Buddha,
Buddhists in all
one's
ages
works
have
are then
recognized
worthy
that
of merit.
the
For
least
they are
important
accomplished
fast
by
is the
the
fast
Buddha
of the
nature.
physical body. The most important fast is the fasting of the
This is a
six senses.
profound teaching.
This is something we must
If
profoundly
you are empty,
look at
if you have
and
not
rejoice
developed the
in
Buddha
fasting
nature, if the root of the Buddha is
within
not
these
pushing
disciplines.
up the flowers and the leaves, if you have not internalized
Bodhidharma
the Buddha
explains
nature,
that worshiping without
then
cultivating
the
the
good
inner
works you are
meaning
doing
is also
are not coming
fruitless.
forth from the Buddha nature. Therefore,
This, of
you
course,
do not
we see
receive the
often
merit of having done
in the
them
religions of
through
the West,
Buddha nature.
rote
Nevertheless,
religions,
until you realize the
where
Buddha
people,
nature,
even the leaders
it is
of
well to
churches,
do
not
good
know the
works.
meanings of their own
it is
doctrine,
better to do
their
good
own
works
dogma, and cannot
when
explain it.
you channel into those works
Bodhidharma
profound
says,
love
worship
for the
means
Buddha nature in
reverence
yourself
and
in
humility.
another,
It means
and
revering
profound
your
love for
real
that
self
Buddha nature that is
and
increasing.
humbling delusions.
You're watching Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and
Be
founder
humble
of Summit University.
and reduce the
Summit
level
University
of your
is located
delusions.
at the beautiful Royalty
If you can wipe out evil desires and harbor good
north of
thoughts,
Yellowstone National Park.
even if nothing
If
shows,
you'd like more information,
it is worship.
call
Such form is its real
1-800-245-5445.
form.
That's 1-800-245-5445.
The Lord wanted worldly people to think of worship as expressing humility and subduing the mind, replacing one's
Bodhidharma says,
self-delusions with the
observing
spirit
a
of
fast is
humility.
useless unless you
So he
understand
told them
what
to
this
prostrate
really
their
means.
bodies, to show their reverence, to
This
let
teaching
the
on
external
fasting
express the
is the
internal,
most enlightening
to harmonize
I've ever
essence and form.
Those of you who fast, listen carefully.
This
To
is the
fast
teaching of
means
Gautama Buddha.
to regulate your
We
body
perform
and
outer
mind
rituals
so that they are not
because it
distracted or
reminds us
disturbed.
of the internal.
Now that is the principle.
Those who fail to
reason
cultivate the
for
inner meaning
fasting.
and concentrate
Unless
instead on
you
the
are
outward
fasting
expression
purely for health
never
reasons.
stop indulging in
But once
ignorance,
you hear this teaching,
hatred,
you will
and evil,
incorporate your
while
fasting for
exhausting
health
themselves
reasons
to no
into
avail.
the disciplines
They
of
can
Buddha
deceive
outline.
others with postures, remain shameless
So
before
this is
sages,
Bodhidharma.
and
To
vain
fast
before
means to
mortals,
regulate your
but they will
body
never
and mind
escape the wheel,
so that they are not
much less
distracted or
achieve
disturbed.
any merit.
And
The
to
wheel
observe means
of
to
rebirth.
uphold. To uphold the
There is an
rules of
old
discipline.
Buddhist tale about a lama who realized the
according to
real
the
meaning
Dharma.
of worship, rather than just
Fasting means
concentrating
guarding
on the
against the
external
6
expression
attractions on the
of his
outside.
spiritual practice.
The attractions
Surya
to which
Das
the 6
writes,
senses
An old
become
lama liked to
attached.
sit in meditation on a large flat rock
Guarding against
overlooking
the
a
6
placid
attractions
pool.
on the outside.
Yet every time he
Fasting
began
means
his
guarding
prayers and
against
devotions
the
in
three
earnest,
poisons on the
just as soon as
inside.
he had crossed his legs and settled
Greed,
down,
anger,
he would
delusion.
spot an insect
Fasting
struggling
means
helplessly in the
striving
water.
through contemplation.
Time
to
after time, he would
purify
lift
your
up his
body
creaky old
and
body
mind.
and deliver the tiny creature to safety
Fasting
before
also
settling
includes
down again
5 kinds
on his rocky
of
seat.
food.
So his
This is what
contemplations
you
went
get to eat
day after
on your
day.
fast.
His
1.
brother monks were dedicated
First, there
meditators
is
who also
delight
went off
in the
daily
Dharma.
to sit alone in the rocky
So
ravines
you
and
eat
caves of that
the
desolate
delight in
region.
the Dharma. This is the
Eventually, they
delight
became
that comes
aware
from
that the old
acting in
lama hardly
accordance
ever
with
managed to
the
sit
Dharma.
still, but actually spent most of his meditation
2.
sessions plucking insects out of the
The
tiny
second
pool.
kind of food is harmony in meditation.
This is an Eastern story
This is the
that
harmony
not
of
all of us
body
can
and mind
understand.
that comes from seeing.
It certainly seemed
through
fitting
subject
to save the
and
life of a
object.
helpless sentient being of any
Seeing
kind,
through
large or
subject
small.
and object.
But some of the
You
monks
must have
occasionally
harmony in
wondered if the old
meditation while
lama's
fasting.
meditations
If
might
you do
not
not
be
do all
greatly
these
furthered if he
things
sat
that Bodhidharma
undisturbed
lists,
elsewhere,
you
away
fast
from
in
such
vain.
distractions. One day they finally mentioned their concern to him.
The third
One
kind
monk
of
asked
food
the
is
old
invocation.
man, wouldn't
The
it be more
invocation of
beneficial to
Buddhas
sit elsewhere
with
and
both your
meditate
mouth
deeply,
and your
undisturbed
mind.
all day? That way you would more swiftly
We
gain
have
perfect enlightenment,
good
and then
adeptship
you could be free
on giving
to free all
invocations
living
with the
beings
mouth.
from the ocean of
We
conditioned
can learn
existence.
lessons of concentration.
Another brother suggested, perhaps you could just
invocations
meditate by
of
the
the
pool
mind.
with your eyes closed.
The fourth food you eat
A young
while
scholarly
fasting
monk,
is
emboldened by the
resolution.
more tactful
The
queries of his
resolution to
senior brethren,
pursue
demanded,
virtue,
how can you
whether
develop
walking,
perfect
standing,
tranquility
sitting,
and
or
deep,
lying down?
diamond-like concentration
Virtue is
if
an
you keep
essential
getting up
part
and sitting down 100
of
times in
fasting.
each meditation session?
Resolution
And so
brings
it went.
the determination
The
to
venerable
embody that
old
virtue.
lama listened attentively,
The
saying
fifth
nothing.
food, while
When all had had their
fasting,
say,
is
he
liberation.
bowed gratefully and
The
said,
liberation of your mind.
I'm
from
sure my
worldly
meditations would be deeper
contamination.
and more fruitful if I
You
sat
don't
unmoved
fast
all
and
day,
then
brothers, as you
Tune
say.
in
But how can an
to all the
old,
degrading
worthless one like
manifestations
myself,
in movies
who has
and
vowed
television
again
shows.
and again to give this lifetime
These 5
and
are
all
the
his
foods of
lives to
fasting.
serving and liberating others,
Unless
just
a
sit
person
with
eats
closed
these
eyes
5 pure
and hardened
foods,
heart?
he is wrong to think he is
How
fasting.
can I pray and intone
This
the
is
altruistic
Bodhidharma.
mantra of great
Bodhidharma in our
compassion
midst.
while right before my very eyes,
Also,
helpless creatures
once you
are
stop
drowning?
eating the food of delusion, if you touch it
To
again,
that simple,
you break
humble
your
question,
fast.
none of the assembled monks
And once you
could
break it,
find
you reap no
an answer.
blessing from it. The world is full of
That
deluded
is the
people
end
who do
of
not
that
see
story.
this. They indulge their body and mind
Next,
in all manner
Bodhidharma's
of evil.
disciple
They
asks
give
about the
free rein
practice
to their
some Buddhists
passions and
have
no
of
shame.
invoking
And when
Amitabha
they
in
stop
order to
eating
be
ordinary
reborn
food,
in his
they call
Western
it
paradise.
fasting. How absurd.
So you see,
Says
Bodhidharma
Bodhidharma.
condones the seeking
The
and
absurdity of observing
calling
only the
upon the
external
Buddhas
ritual
to
of
be
fasting
their
was pointed
teachers.
out in this anecdote by
Red
John
Pine
Husserl.
explains that the Western paradise,
gatekeeper in
also
the
called the
capital
Pure
city of
Land, is
Sun
presided over by
became such an
Amitabha,
expert
one of the
mourner
5 Dhyani
after
Buddhas,
his father's death.
and the one who is
He
associated
so
with the West.
emaciated himself with
Amitabha.
fasts and austerities
Red Pine
that he was
says,
promoted to high rank in order
wholehearted
that he might
invocation
serve
of
as a
Amitabha
model of
assures
ritual
the devotee
observance.
of rebirth in his
As
Pure
a
Land,
result of this,
which is
his
described as
imitators so
millions of
deprived
miles
themselves
away
that half of
and
them
not
died.
very far at
The
all.
others were not promoted.
Once reborn there, devotees have little trouble understanding the
This is a
Dharma
very
and attaining
dry
liberation.
account.
Bodhidharma's teaching begins
It
with
comes
Wei
in a
Ke
very timely
asking,
moment if you've been watching
the
the
sutras
news
say that
and
someone who
hearing the
wholeheartedly
talk about
invokes the
young
Buddha is
girls,
sure to be
even
reborn
at an early
in the
age,
Western
starving
paradise.
themselves
Since
so that
this
they can
door
look
leads
super
to
thin.
Buddhahood,
And
why seek
it is an
liberation
obsession.
in
We've heard about it
beholding the
for years,
mind?
but it is coming to the fore now because
Bodhidharma
someone
answered,
who was a great athlete
if you are
actually
going
starved
to
herself
invoke
to death,
the Buddha, you
did not
have
allow
to do
herself
it
to pass
right.
into puberty. And
Unless you understand
died
what
because of the
invoking
malfunction
means,
of her
you
organs.
will do it
And when
wrong.
she was in the hospital,
And if you do it
she
wrong,
took
you
the
will never
IV
go
off
anywhere.
and threw it in the garbage
Buddha
can.
means awareness, the
So
awareness
this is
of
the
body and
fanaticism,
mind that prevents
the
evil
wrong
from
side, the
arising
evil
in
side,
either.
the entity-ridden side.
Now that is a
of
very
fasting.
good definition
We
of
need to be
your
aware of it
Buddhahood.
because many demons
Buddha means
lead us
awareness,
to this point,
the
or
awareness
would
of
lead us to
body
this point.
and mind
Some
that
people are
prevents
addicted
evil
to fasting
from arising in
on the
either.
spiritual path.
And to invoke
Bodhidharma does
means
not
to
recommend
call
it,
to mind,
except
to
under
call
the terms
constantly to mind
that
the
he
rules
has
of
stated.
discipline and to
And the
follow them
wonderful
with
thing
all
about this
your might.
teaching on fasting is to
To
realize
invoke
that
means to
these
call
monks
to
under
mind
Bodhidharma and
the rules
Buddhists
of
in all
discipline and
ages
follow them
recognize
with all
that
your might.
the least
That is what is
important
meant
fast
by
is the
invoking.
fast of the physical
Invoking
body.
has to
The
do
most
with
important
thought
fast
and
is the
not with
fasting
language.
of the six senses. This is something
We know that we must do
profoundly
this both
look at
in the mind
and
and in the
rejoice in
spoken word.
fasting.
Then Bodhidharma
within
says, if
these
you use a
disciplines.
trap to catch fish, once you succeed, you can forget the trap.
Bodhidharma
And if you use language
explains
to
that
find
worshiping
meaning,
without
once you find
cultivating the
it,
inner
you can
meaning
forget
is
language.
also fruitless.
To invoke the Buddha's name, you have to understand
course, we
the
see
Dharma
often
of invoking.
In the religions of the
The
West,
Dharma of invoking.
rote
If it is not
religions,
present in your mind, your mouth
where
chants
people,
an
even the
empty
leaders
name.
of churches, do
As
not
long
know
as
the
you are
meanings
troubled by the three
of their own
poisons
doctrine,
or by thoughts
their
of
own
yourself,
dogma, and
your
cannot explain
deluded
it.
mind will keep you from seeing the Buddha,
Bodhidharma
and you will only
says,
waste your
worship
effort.
means reverence
Chanting
and
and
humility.
invoking
It
are
means
worlds
revering your
apart.
real self.
Chanting is
and
done with the
humbling
mouth,
delusions.
invoking is done with the mind. And because invoking comes from the mind, it is called the
Be
door
humble
to
and
awareness.
reduce the level of your
By
delusions.
invoking God,
If you can
open
wipe
the
out
door
evil desires
of the
and
mind
harbor
to
good
the
thoughts,
awareness of God.
even if nothing shows, it is worship. Such form is its real form.
I'm going to
The Lord
now
wanted
give you a
worldly
Tibetan
people to
story
think
about
of
the
worship
fifth
as
Dalai Lama,
expressing humility
who tells of
and
the importance of
subduing the
invoking
mind
with the mind and not
and
simply
placing
chanting
one's
with the mouth.
self-delusions with the spirit of humility.
I want to tell you that
So he told them to
invoking with the
prostrate their
mind
bodies
must
to
always
show
be
their
accompanied
reverence,
by
to let
the
the external
visualization
express the
of a
internal,
thought form
to
of that
harmonize
which you
essence
desire to draw
and
down
form.
from the Buddha. So there's no
This is the
opportunity
teaching of Gautama Buddha.
to fail to
We
concentrate.
perform outer
You must
rituals
concentrate, and you must
because it
fill
reminds
in
us
with
of the
absolute
internal.
concentration.
Those who fail
That
to
which
cultivate
you
the
are
inner meaning and
invoking
concentrate
from God,
instead on the outward
The Godhead
expression,
itself,
never stop
and that which
indulging
you
in
are drawing
ignorance,
down,
hatred,
pulling
and evil,
into this world,
while exhausting
so
themselves
that
to no
life
avail.
streams of lesser evolution
They can
may
deceive
benefit
others with
from your
postures,
invoking.
remain shameless before sages,
This is a
and
discipline
vain
that you
before
can do
mortals,
if your
but they will
mind
never escape
is
the wheel,
slightly
much
more
less
yang than
achieve
yin.
any merit.
The mind gets too
The
yin,
wheel
you can't
of
even remember
rebirth.
that you're creating a thought form while you're giving an
There is an
invocation.
old Buddhist tale about
So
a lama
master
who
the mind,
realized the real meaning
be
of
diligent
worship,
in this.
rather than just concentrating
This
on the
story
external
about the fifth
expression
Dalai Lama
of his
is taken from the
spiritual
book
practice.
Tibet by Colin
Surya
Turnbull
Das
and
writes,
Thubten
an old
Jigme
lama
Norbu.
liked to sit in meditation
Once,
on a
as he was
large
looking
flat
down
rock
from his palace,
overlooking a
the
placid
Potala,
pool.
the fifth Dalai Lama, saw an
Yet
old
every time he
man
began
making
his
his
prayers
circuit
and devotions
of
in
the
earnest,
sacred city.
just as soon as he had crossed
The
his
man was
legs
followed
and
by the
settled
figure
down,
of a woman,
he would spot an
whom he
insect
instantly
struggling
recognized as
helplessly in the
Dolma
water.
or Tara, the
Time
heavenly
after time, he
consort
would lift up his
of
creepy old
Avalokiteshvara.
body and deliver the tiny creature
Every day
to
at the
safety
same
before
time, the
settling
old man
down
appeared
again
on his pilgrimage,
rocky
and every
seat.
day he was followed
So
by
his
the image of
contemplations
Dolma.
went day after day.
The Dalai Lama asked
His
for the
brother
old
monks
man
were
to be brought to
dedicated
him
meditators
and
who
then
also went
questioned
off
him.
daily to sit
The
alone
man
in the
knew
rocky
nothing of
ravines
Dolma
and caves of
following
that
him
desolate region.
and abused the court by his
Eventually
ignorance
they became
and
aware
apparent
that the old
stupidity.
Lama hardly ever managed
He was
to
merely
sit
making
still,
the prescribed
but
pilgrimage,
actually
he
spent
said,
most of his
and reciting the
meditation
holy
sessions
prayer
plucking
as he had
insects
been
out
taught.
of the tiny pool.
When he recited the prayer, he was
This
ridiculed
is an
for the
Eastern
number of
story
mistakes
that
he had made,
not all of us
and
can
he was carefully
understand.
taught how to
It
recite it
certainly
correctly.
seemed fitting to save the life
The
of a
next
helpless
day, the Dalai
sentient
Lama
being
watched
of
from
any
the roof
kind,
of the
large or
potala
small.
with members of his court.
But some of the monks
when the old man
occasionally
appeared
wondered
as
if the
usual,
old Lama's
he was alone.
meditations
There
might
was no
not be
sign
greatly
of the
furthered if he
goddess
sat
Dolma.
undisturbed elsewhere.
Once
away
more,
from
the Dalai
such
Lama had the
distractions.
old man brought to him.
One day they finally
There in
mentioned
front
their
of everyone,
concern
he
to
told
him.
the old man
One monk
that
asked
he
the
was
old
more
man,
fortunate than those who
"Wouldn't
had
it be more
presumed
beneficial
to try to
sit
correct
elsewhere
him for
and
his
meditate
faulty
deeply,
recitation.
undisturbed
For
all
in his
day?
ignorance he
That way
nevertheless
you would
had the
more swiftly
protection
gain
of
perfect
Dolma,
enlightenment,
whereas in
and
his
then you could be
newfound
free
learning he
to
had
free
lost
all
it.
living beings from the ocean of conditioned
He
existence."
told the old man to return to his
Another brother
pilgrimage
suggested,
and to continue as
"Perhaps
he
you
had
could just
begun,
meditate by
with
the
his
pool
mind and
with your
heart
eyes closed."
fixed on their purpose.
A young scholarly monk,
For it was
emboldened by the
devotion
more
and
tactful
not
theories
learning
of his
that
senior
brought
brethren,
such
demanded,
blessings.
"How can you develop perfect tranquility and deep, diamond-like concentration if you keep getting up and sitting down
The
at
Dolma
different times
followed
in each
the old
meditation
man.
session?"
Because
And so it went.
he had the perfect thought form in his
The
mind of the
venerable
prayer
old
he was
Lama
saying.
listened attentively, saying nothing.
And so the
When
Dolma
all
could
it
step
had
through
there say,
that
he
thought
bowed
form
gratefully and said,
and manifest with him.
"I'm sure my meditations would be deeper and more fruitful if I sat
The old
unmoved
man
all
did as
day,
he was told.
brothers,
Once again
as
he
you
was
say.
seen making his round of the city,
But how can an old,
mumbling his
worthless
faulty
one like
prayer.
myself,
And
who
once
had vowed
again
again
Dolma was
and again
there,
to give this
following
lifetime
and protecting
all
him.
his lives to serving and liberating others,
Bodhidharma
just sit with
continues his
closed
discourse.
eyes and hardened
If you
heart?
cling to appearances while
How can I
searching for
pray and
meaning,
intone
you
the
won't find
altruistic
a thing.
mantra of great
Thus sages of the past
while right
cultivated
before my very
introspection
eyes,
and
helpless
not
creatures
speech.
are drowning?
Chuang
To that
Tzu gives
simple,
the same
humble
teaching.
question,
He says,
none of the
the purpose of a
assembled
fish trap
ones
is to
could
catch
find
fish,
an answer.
and when the fish are caught, the trap is forgotten.
That is the end of
The
that
purpose of a
story.
rabbit snare is to catch rabbits. When the rabbits are
Next,
caught, the snare
Bodhidharma's
is
disciple
forgotten.
asks about
The purpose of
practice
words is
some
to
Buddhists
convey
follow
ideas. When
of
the
invoking
ideas are
Amitabha
grasped,
in
the
order to be
words are
reborn
forgotten.
in his Western
Where can I
paradise.
find a man who has forgotten words?
So you see,
He is the
Bodhidharma
one
condones
I would like
the
to talk
seeking
to.
and calling upon the Buddhas to be their teachers. Red Pine explains that the
Bodhidharma
Western
concludes his
paradise,
sermon
also
with
called the
these
Pure
words.
Land, is presided over by
The people I meet nowadays are superficial.
and the one who is associated
They think of
with the
merit
rest.
as something that has
Amitabha.
form.
Red Pine
They
says,
squander their wealth and butcher
wholehearted
creatures of
invocation
land
of
and sea.
Amitabha assures
They
the
foolishly
devotee of
concern
rebirth in
themselves
his
with
Pure
erecting
Land, which is
statues
described
and
as millions of
stupas,
miles
telling
away
people to pile up
and
lumber
not
and
very
bricks
far
to
at
paint
all.
this blue and that green.
Once
They
reborn
strain
there,
body and
devotees
mind,
have
injure
little trouble
themselves,
understanding the
and
Dharma
mislead others.
and attaining liberation.
And they do not know
Bodhidharma's
enough
teaching
to
begins
be
with Wei
ashamed.
Ke asking,
How will
the
they ever
sutras
become
say that someone who
enlightened?
wholeheartedly invokes the Buddha
They
is
see
sure to be
something
reborn
tangible
in
and
the Western
instantly
paradise.
become attached.
Since this door leads
If you talk to them
Buddhahood,
about formlessness,
why seek
they sit
liberation
there dumb and
beholding
confused,
the mind?
greedy for the small mercies of this world.
Bodhidharma
They
answered,
remain blind to the great
if you are
suffering
going
to
to
come.
invoke the Buddha, you have
Such
to do it
disciples
right.
wear themselves out in vain.
Unless you understand what
Turning
invoking
from the
means,
true to the false.
you will do it wrong.
They talk about nothing
and if
but
you do it
future
wrong,
blessings.
you will never go anywhere. Buddha means awareness, the
If
awareness
you
of
can
body
simply
and mind that
concentrate
prevents
your
evil
mind's
from
inner
arising
light
in either.
and behold its outer
And that is a very
illumination,
good definition.
you will dispel the
of
three
your
poisons, greed,
Buddha means awareness,
anger,
the awareness
delusion,
of body,
and drive
and
away the
mind that
6
prevents evil
thieves
from
once
arising in
and for
either.
all. And without
And to
effort,
invoke
you will
means
gain
to
possession
call
of
to
an
mind,
infinite number
to call
of
constantly
virtues,
to mind the rules of
perfections,
discipline and to
and
follow
doors
them
to
with
the
all
truth.
your might.
Seeing through the
To invoke
mundane
means to
and
call to
witnessing
mind
the sublime is less
the rules
than
of
an
discipline
eye
and
blink
follow them
away.
with all your might. That is what is meant by invoking.
Realization
Invoking has
is
to
now.
do with thought. and
Why
not
worry
with
about
language.
gray hair
We
But the
know
true
that you
door
have
is
seen
hidden
this both
and
in the
cannot be
mind
revealed.
and in the spoken word.
I have only
Then
touched
Bodhidharma
upon
says, if you
beholding
use a trap to
the
catch
mind.
fish, once you succeed, you can forget the trap. And
That
if
is
you
the end
use
of the
language
quote
to
by
find
Bodhidharma,
meaning, once you find it,
in
you
which
can forget
we
the
hear
language.
his
To
profound
invoke the Buddha's name, you have to understand the Dharma of invoking.
This is the end.
The Dharma of invoking. If it is not present in your mind, your mind stands an empty mind. As long as you are troubled by the sensations, or by thoughts of yourself, your deluded mind will keep you consumed the Buddha, and you will only waste your efforts. Chanting and invoking are words apart. Chanting is done with the mouth, invoking is done with the mind. And because invoking comes from the mind, it is called the door to awareness. By invoking God,
For more information on Elizabeth Clare Prophet's prophetic vision and spiritual solutions, call 1-800-245-5445. The preceding program was presented by Summit University, Box 5000, Livingston, Montana, 59047 5000. If you'd like to know more, call this number or write this address.
I want to tell you that invoking with the mind must always be accompanied by the visualization
For a free book by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, or for more information about her teachings on the world's major religions, call 1-800-245-5445.
to fail to concentrate. You must concentrate, and you must pour in with absolute concentration. That which you are invoking in God, the Godhead itself, and that which you are drawing down, pulling into this world, so that life streams of lesser evolution may benefit from your invoking. This is a discipline that you can do if your mind is slightly more young than you. The mind gets too young, you can't even remember that you're creating a platform while you're giving an invocation. So master the mind, be diligent in this. This story about the fifth Dalai Lama is taken from the book Tibet by Colin Turnbull and Thubten Jigane Norbu. Once as he was looking down from his palace, the Kosala, the fifth Dalai Lama, saw an old man making his circuit of the sacred city.
Mis queridos mentores,
The
buenas
man was
noches, ¿cómo
followed by the
están?
figure of a woman,
noches,
whom he instantly
Bien, ¿cómo han
recognized as
estado? Los veo
Dharma,
contentos
or
hoy.
Tara, the heavenly
Felices
consort
porque no nos toca a
of
nosotros.
Avalokiteshvara.
Claro.
Me toca a mí,
Every day
estoy
at the same
feliz.
time, the
Eso,
old
la
man appeared
mancha
on his
amarilla,
pilgrimage, and every day he was followed by
Selección
the
de
image of
Santiago
Dharma.
Cruz.
The Dalai
Preparados
Lama
porque
asked for the old
recibimos
man
a
to be brought to him,
Dante, el
and
doble
then
exacto de
questioned him.
Nino Bravo.
The man knew nothing of Dharma, following him, and abused the court by his ignorance and apparent stupidity.
Hay una chica
He was merely
que es
making the
igual,
prescribed pilgrimage, he said, and reciting the holy prayer
pero
as he
distinta a
had
las
been
demás.
taught.
La
When he
veo
recited
todas
the
las
prayer, he was
noches por la
ridiculed for the
playa
number of
pasear
mistakes he had made,
y
and
no
he was
sé de
carefully
dónde
taught
viene.
how to recite it correctly.
Y no sé a
The next
dónde
day, the
va.
Dalai Lama watched from the roof of the Kotala with members of his court, but when the old man appeared as usual, he was alone. There was no sign of the goddess Dharma. Once more, the Dalai Lama had the old man brought to him. There, in front of everyone, he told the old man that he was more fortunate than those who had presumed to try to correct him for his faulty reputation. For in his ignorance he nevertheless had the protection of Dharma, whereas in his newfound learning he had lost it. He told the old man to return to his pilgrimage and to continue as he had begun, with his mind and heart fixed on their purpose. For it was devotion and not learning that brought such blessings.
Parece que me va a llamar y luego
The Dharma followed the old man
hace tiempo
because
que
he had the perfect
sueño con
platform in his mind of the prayer he was saying,
Solo sé que se
and so
llama
the Dharma could step through that platform.
Hace tiempo que vivo por ella. Y solo sé
The old man
que se
Buddha was
llama
pleased. Once again he was seen making his round of the city, mumbling his faulty prayer. And once again Dharma was there, following and protecting him. Bodhidharma continues his discourse. If you cling to appearances while searching for meaning, you won't find a thing. Thus sages of the past cultivated introspection and not speech. Wang Tzu gives the same teaching. He says, the purpose of a fish trap is to catch fish, and when the fish are caught to trap, the trap is forgotten. The purpose of a rabbit snare is to catch rabbits, and the rabbits are caught, the snare is forgotten. The purpose of words is to convey ideas. When the ideas are grasped, the words are forgotten. Where can I find a man who has forgotten words? He is the one I would like to talk to. Bodhidharma concludes his sermon with these words. The people I meet nowadays are superficial. They think of merit as something that has fun. They squander their wealth on virtual creatures of land and sea. They foolishly concern themselves with erecting statues and stupas, telling people to pile up lumber and bricks, to paint this blue and that
Feliz esta
blue.
noche porque
They
tengo
strain
mi
body
día
and mind,
en el
injure
campamento donde
themselves,
he
and
aprendido
mislead
y
others.
me he escondido,
And they do
guardado
not know enough
como
to
el
be
león viejo de la
ashamed.
manada que ve a todos los cachorros,
How will they ever
no
become
digamos alardeando ni
enlightened?
presumiendo porque todos son muy humildes de verdad los
They
muchachos,
see
pero todos
something
muestran sus
tangible
destrezas
and instantly
de canto,
become
en
attached.
este caso sería por ejemplo de cacería,
If you
y el
talk to
león
them
viejito
about
pero escondido.
formlessness,
Hacernos una nota
they
de niño,
sit
yo
there
digo,
dumb and
yo
confused.
la guardo para el disco
Greedy
donde está
for the
la
small
oportunidad que estoy
mercies of
esperando
this world,
hace muchos
they
años
remain
y por lo
blind
cual
to the
vine
great
porque esta es mi
suffering to
bendición.
come.
¡Claro!
Such disciples wear themselves
Dante,
out
¿qué
in
falta le
vain.
hacías a este escenario,
Turning
al
from the
disco?
true to
Realmente
the false.
verte aquí de frente a
They
pocos
talk
metros para
about
mí es
nothing
una
but future
gran alegría.
blessings.
Esas notas graves y de pronto las terminas con una sonrisa que se cambia de color. Y
If
eso es lo
you
bonito
can
de ti, cómo
simply
cambias los colores y
concentrate
descubres los
your
colores de
mind's
Nino.
inner light,
Y nos
and
traes una
behold its
canción, por
outer
supuesto, que está
illumination,
tatuada en el alma de
you
los
dispel the
latinoamericanos.
three
Yo le
poisons,
pague,
Hermano,
maestro.
qué bonito
Greed,
verte acá y tantas
anger,
enseñanzas también que les estás dando a todo tu equipo y a la gente
and
allá en el
drive away
campamento.
the six
Muchas gracias, maestro Gus, y Dios le pague.
once
Muchas gracias.
and for all.
Marvel.
Yo tenía
Without
muchas
effort,
ganas
you
de
will
verte,
gain
Dante.
possession of an
Yo
infinite
caí
number of virtues.
en tu estrategia, si fue una
Perfection.
estrategia, pero yo tenía
And
muchas ganas de
doors to
verte.
the truth.
Tengo mis lágrimas contenidas porque de
Seeing
verdad
through the mundane
verte a ti de la
and
forma tan
witnessing the
inocente y tan
sublime
pura en
is
que
less
cantas con esa
than
sonrisa
I
y
blink
puedes sacar
away.
esa tremenda voz que uno dice de dónde sale porque él se está sonriendo.
Realization
Él no está
is
haciendo
now.
ningún esfuerzo.
Why
Y haces que
worry
parezca
about
tan
gray
fácil
hair?
cuando realmente estás dejando el alma.
But the
Sabemos
true
el
door is
sacrificio tan
hidden
inmenso que has
and
hecho
cannot be
y por eso
revealed.
sé lo importante de esta noche
I
para
have only
ti.
touched
Y te agradezco
upon
compartir eso.
beholding.
Dios le pague, gracias. Cuando yo canté esta canción
It is the end of a quote by
en el
Bodhidharma,
2011,
in
mi
which
esposa desapareció,
we
no
hear
contaba con ella.
is
Yo
profound.
siempre que canto la canción, la recuerdo, es mi motivación, la guerrera, la que
This is
estaba
the end
luchando
of
allá.
our
Y
Ay, Dios mío.
Y en este momento la leona que está batiendo por todos nosotros de la familia. Pero yo aquí, mi amor, le quiero decir que yo sé que ella me está viendo. Estoy pasando momentos muy buenos.
For more
con
information
39
on
maestros,
Elizabeth Clare
los cuales
Prophet's
aprendo
prophetic
cada
vision
día,
and
con
spiritual
cuatro personas
solutions,
maravillosas
call
que me apoyan, me motivan y esta oportunidad maravillosa que me dio
1-800-545-5445.
mi Dios. De verdad que es una cosa muy linda.
The preceding
A los
program is
55 años
presented
que
by Summit
tengo.
University.
Además está muy
Box
elegante.
5000, Livingston, Montana. 59047-5000.
Sí, con este me casé.
If you'd like
Sí,
to
para mi
know
esposa
more,
que sepa que no
call
estoy
this
luciendo
number
hoy
or write
y le
this
sobra
address.
la botica.
Con eso, sí. No, mentira, antes. Ay, Dios mío.
Es una tela italiana en Titiriba, Antioquia.
for a free book by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, or for more information about her teachings on the world's major religions, call 1-800-245-5445.
Yo estoy hablando con uno que es la foto de mi esposa. Siempre donde canto es con ella.